Hi everyone, welcome back to our IG Live series. I'm Rebecca, the CMO of GoStork. Hope you're all having a good day, midway through National Infertility Awareness Week. And we are so honored, especially this week, to have someone from the community who we truly admire for her bravery, honesty, and just the way she inspires and supports so many others. Erin, who many of you know as @MyBeautifulBlunder, is just incredibly transparent about her journey as well as her day-to-day experience and what she's learned and is continuing to learn and experience along the way. So I'm just adding her now. Bear with me. Hi, Erin.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I saw your cute orange shirt earlier today.
Oh, it already has some spit up on it, so I had to change it.
I had a similar situation, actually. Ended up not being able to wear orange, but I'm trying to support through other
nice.
accessorizing and such.
I don't know why this looks blurry on my end. Hold on 1 second.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Erin.
That's better.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
Good, we're so happy to have you here. I was just
I'm so excited
to have you. Happy middle of National Infertility Awareness Week.
It's been amazing. So that's always good, right?
Yeah, no, I think it has been. Yeah, and so just before we get started, quickly for anyone who's new to us, GoStork is the first fertility marketplace where intended parents find, compare, and connect with top fertility providers. And through these lives, we love to help bring intended parents insights, support, and lived experiences from the experts and those who have walked the path ahead of them that they're about to embark on. So just one of the many reasons we're so happy to have you today. So.
Oh, you're so sweet. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, and we're especially excited to have you during this week. It's been a busy one for sure, but such an important one. And I think there are just a few important themes we're all focused on, what I want you to know, changing the conversation, let's get real about it. I represent someone who, and I think you've been focused on a lot of those this week. And Resolve also is just so actively communicating all about the power of sharing our voice and our stories. And, on that note, I think your openness and transparency is just really empowering. And I think sharing your story helps more people than you know. So, thank you for being here today and for everything you do every day.
Oh, thank you. You're so sweet. It's honestly my pleasure. When I first started, I was so lost, and definitely having support from all these wonderful, amazing people just reminds me and motivates me to want to do that for others. So
yeah, that's amazing. And I'd love to start kind of at the beginning with your first journey. Sure. So although you received an infertility diagnosis earlier than many ever discover that, you're still able to have your amazing twins. But I don't mean to simplify that by any means.
No.
Would just love if you could walk us through what that, experience really was.
Yeah. So I was married kind of young, but we decided to start having kids when I was 26, and I wasn't getting a period. So I, for a while, thought I was pregnant and went through boxes of pregnancy tests. Obviously those were all negative, but just developed a really bad relationship with them. So then we found out I just wasn't ovulating on my own, which is why I wasn't getting a period. But I just had no idea about any of that because we're just not used to asking, and we assume everything's always going to be okay. So we went to a fertility clinic just because we were told we had maybe like a small 1 to 5% chance of it working, but if you don't ovulate on your own, then so we went to a fertility clinic, and I did at the time have a lot of follicles. So they suggested doing an IUI. I was 26 and my husband was 30, almost 31. So our first IUI actually ended up working, and we ended up getting pregnant with triplets. So that was amazing that it worked so quickly, but we did have to have a medical reduction 9 weeks into the pregnancy because the doctors were all just suggesting for us to do that because I was going to compromise my health and then the health of all three babies should I choose to keep them. So we decided it was a really hard decision, but overall, I know that we made the right one. It's just still something that weighs heavy on our hearts because I guess we'd never know, right? Like you never know what could have happened, but you can't think that way. And our twins were healthy. They were tiny. So in hindsight, I don't know how we would have fit another one in there because they were each born very, very, very small. But my pregnancy was great. That part of it obviously was really scary. We had to drive to Los Angeles to have our reduction done. And then we just decided not to talk about it. My husband didn't want to talk about it. It was very traumatic to actually see them do that. So it was just like any other, room with extra machines. And then they just go in and choose whatever embryo is easiest to get to. And then you just kind of bleed like a period. So being able to see that on the monitor was really hard, especially because we had to go through infertility treatments. But like I said, we're so thankful that our twins were healthy. One ended up in the NICU for about 11 days, and then we got to take her home with the other. So that was that. I did have complications after giving birth, but just because I'm pretty small, and so I ended up having to have hernia repair and my muscles sewn back together because they completely tore. Because I did make it to 37 weeks, which was great. But yeah.
It's a balance. I mean, it is still heartbreaking, but it's amazing too that you had your twins, obviously, and everything turned out okay, even if one was in the NICU a little bit longer. Every journey is unique, right? And would you give advice to others to kind of ask about and advocate to find out more about their fertility earlier?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's such an important thing, like now knowing. I mean, I talk to the twins about it now, and we talk about it all the time. And, we say we're just going to ask, and more than likely they'll be okay, but there could be a chance that they're not. And we'll figure it out. But absolutely, I think back then and even today, like we just don't know to ask because we assume that we're women, we're healthy. Our parents had, an easy time for the most part. I'm sure there's a lot of parents that didn't, but my parents did. So from experience, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't even know to ask. So definitely going into your doctor, honestly, even if you're not even at that point in your life, just to ask to see what kind of test you can do, just to be prepared. Because for me, honestly, if I knew how hard it was and how hard it became afterwards, I honestly would have frozen eggs back then. Even when I did my IUI with the twins, that wasn't even mentioned to me as a suggestion, which I think is pretty interesting. So.
Yeah. I was wondering if you ran into any like assumptions or misconceptions about your fertility that commonly happen and you could dispel. I mean, obviously that there's the one about like if you would go through a similar experience as your parents, but was there anything else you kind of learned about that you could help others prepare for?
You mean going through it,
or even just like, did you assume your second journey would be similar to your first? And then
well, we assumed the second journey would be just as easy, also because we chose to go directly to IVF to try and avoid multiples, because I do have a lot of follicles to start off with. So we thought for sure IVF, since an IUI worked so well, we thought IVF would be like 1, 2, 3, and this is how people have babies. And again, went into it very naively, and that was partly my fault for not doing enough research on it. But I also didn't tell anybody, so I didn't want to talk about it much. I didn't want it to be a thing. I wanted to just go in and have the baby, But yeah, absolutely, it's so interesting how different it really was from one to the other.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was so much more difficult and complicated. And you've shared with us so generously on our blog, between multiple egg retrievals and I think 7 failed transfers before your sweet Ariella came along. I think there are so many other hurdles you overcame along the way. And would you be able to walk us through kind of sharing that journey to your
So about 6 years in, we were not trying kind of thing. I did have to be on birth control every so often within those 6 years because I don't get a period, and that was the only way that I could induce one. And my OB was concerned and always wanted me to kind of bleed at some point. But however, nothing ever happened. We never got pregnant within those 6 years of not really, holding back or whatever. So we ended up going into IVF. We went to the same fertility clinic as we did with the twins. It had grown. It was much different. And we did our first retrieval in 2017 in the fall. And I thought for sure we'd just get eggs, get an embryo, transfer it. And no, we got one embryo from that retrieval that was PGS tested normal. So we did send it off to make sure. And we transferred it and it failed. And after that, because that was our only embryo, we did have to do a whole nother full cycle. So we had to do a second retrieval, and I wanted to jump into it kind of right away. It's just my personality is like, okay, if this didn't work, let's go on to the next, because, I was also, at the time I started, I was 33. Yeah. So, and my kids were already 6. So I, had this idea that they would be much closer in age, and they were already going to be over 6 years apart. So we did another retrieval. Again, we only got one normal embryo, and then we got one that wasn't as normal, but we transferred both of them and it failed. So then we were already 2 rounds in, 2 transfers in, and we said, you know what, let's just do an IUI. It worked well before we're over the fact that if we have multiples, we have multiples. It is what it is. It didn't work. So at that point, this was 2018, my husband just said, we need to take a break. It's been almost a year of full-on treatments because the cycles do take quite a while when you're, having to start from scratch each time. And I was really hesitant. I didn't want to break because I felt like time was just going to be lost if I did that. But it was actually turned out to be like one of the best things for me. We took 3 months of a break in the summer, and then actually ended up switching clinics because I just wasn't happy at my clinic. And that was a great decision too. That was pretty much the first time I started to really advocate for myself, instead of just assuming everything this doctor said was right. The reason I switched was because I really rarely saw that doctor. And I had a few friends telling me like, that's not really normal, or that's, like that, unless you're okay with that, like, and I wasn't. So, I did switch clinics, and I was so happy at the new clinic. I loved the nurses. Everything was just so different. I did get to see my doctor at every single appointment, ultrasound, blood draw, whatever. So I felt much more cared for, which already made things so much better for me. And in 2018, we again did another retrieval. So this is our 3rd retrieval, and ended up deciding not to PGS test them because we started hearing things like that there was a lot of errors sometimes. So we're like, well, let's do something different. Let's not test them. We ended up with 3 embryos that were not tested. They were good quality, but we didn't know if they were normal or not. And we transferred one in December of 2018. It worked. And we thought that was it. We did it, and then 8 weeks later, we ended up miscarrying. And I ended up having to take misoprostol pills. So it's like pills that go up in your vagina, and they make you miscarry, or they help the miscarriage kind of happen, because the baby, we went in for our 8-week ultrasound, and the heart had stopped beating. So we did see a heartbeat at 6 weeks, and at 8 weeks, unfortunately, it stopped growing. That was probably one of the hardest times of my life. Also, we had told the twins that we were expecting, and then we had to go home that night and tell them that the baby had died. So that was really hard on me, but also on them. And so watching them be really sad about that was really, really hard. It was at that point though when we realized like we need to be a little bit more open with them because they get it and they're resilient, and I think it'll be overall a better, just better.
Yeah.
So my miscarriage ended up lasting about 3 months because I had to do 2 of those pills. I ended up having to catch my own tissue as it came out and take it to the clinic to see if it could get tested to see why I miscarried. None of it ended up being testable. It happens sometimes, and so we still had no answers. Turns out I still ended up having some tissue left over 3 months later, so then I had to do a DNC anyways.
Oh my gosh.
So from that, my biggest advice is I would personally just go straight into a DNC because I had to do it anyways. And your body still needs time to recover regardless. That's just my what I would do if I ever, knock on wood, had to go through that again. So finally we were able to get going again, and we did go back and retest the 2 embryos I had left because I just wanted to kind of like check all the boxes and make sure if I was going to miscarry, I wasn't wondering if it was because it was an abnormal embryo. The problem with doing that is that it does lower the quality of the embryos because you're having to manipulate the embryos by, refreezing them and all of that. So we did get back 1 normal embryo, 1 actually wasn't normal, but that one went down to like a fair grade. So the chances of it implanting went down quite a bit. We transferred it anyways because, it was there and it failed. So then we were faced with a 4th retrieval. I took a lot more supplements. I kind of prepared my body a little bit better for it, and who knows what really worked, but like mentally I had to do that. I had also been doing acupuncture for about a year now, so I know that definitely helped support my blood flow mentally as well. And we ended up with 3 normal embryos, which was the most I'd ever had after a retrieval, and we did test them. So after that, we transferred 1 right away in August. This was 2019. Sorry, this is dragging on.
It's okay.
And then that failed. I ended up getting an MRI to check out my uterus to see what was going on. I did a few, within that year, I had done a couple hysteroscopies and a biopsy of my uterus. They found a form of adenomyosis in my uterus. And it wasn't severe, but it was enough for them to put me on letrozole for 3 months. So I did that. When I came off it, I thought for sure this was going to work. We've done all the things. We've done all the tests. And then again, it failed. This was December or early January of 2020. And I really was done. I just mentally at that point, I had been on hormones for almost 3 years and just going up and down, taking, stopping hormones was just really draining. I was always really happy on all the hormones, but when I came off of them, it was just really, really hard. I fell into really big depression after that last time. So I really was kind of scared. I didn't want to do it again. And my husband's like, let's just give it one more try because we have this last normal embryo left. I ended up switching doctors within the clinic because I had met this other doctor there who I actually felt such a good connection with. And again, something else I advocate for, if you feel that, like, it's your journey, you're mostly paying for it. And they don't care, they really just want you to get pregnant, in my opinion. So that was a great decision. I felt so much better. I also advocated for my uterine lining to be much thicker than it had ever had been, even though that clinic, always said, oh, it's fine between a 7 and a 10 or whatever. I was always on the lower end. So I said, maybe for me, like, I need it to be, because percentage is a percentage, but if you don't fall in there, it doesn't matter, So yeah. I said, why not? Let's just try it. So we upped all my medication. I got my lining to a 9.5, which was like huge for me. And we transferred our last one and she worked. And then the pandemic happened a week later. So we got really lucky with being able to do that right before everything closed.
Thank you so much for sharing that whole thing. And do not say it's dragging on at all. I mean, I think just sharing that can inspire others, whether just hearing that you got through it and came out the other end, or even just others seeing you share your story could help them do so, which I think
Yeah.
can kind of help through the pain and the struggle, and reaching out, you get support
Yeah.
coming back. And I love some of your points along the way about advocating for yourself. And is there anything else you think you would have like asked more about ahead of time, besides just, if the doctor would be attending all of your appointments, for example, or just feeling that click or that chemistry with the doctor? You talked about your uterus lining, but were there other questions you might have asked when you talked about when you switched clinics, you really started to advocate for yourself? Was there any other
Yeah.
advice you
So,
would
I
give?
mean, I basically just wanted to make sure, like I said, the main thing for me was that I saw the same doctor every time too, for the most part. I mean, I know there's times when, like, if you are seeing the doctor, you're going in every other day, there's going to be a time when you can't be there, or
Yeah.
maybe your schedule is better with this doctor for that day.
Yeah.
But I really tried hard to see the same doctor to make sure, like, I felt comfortable that they knew everything that was going on. I also, when I decided to open up on here, got so many amazing comments full of advice. I know some people are not okay with unsolicited advice, but I personally love it, because all I did was I would take all of that, kind of put it into like my notes section in my phone, and then I would take it to my doctor and say, okay, we're going to run through this list. Like, can I do this? Should I do this test? What do you think? And the biggest thing is to trust your doctor, because ultimately, like, that's who you're there with. But also trust your gut. So I think a combination of the two is me asking all the questions that I was getting from all of these amazing women that had gone through things. And I asked about an ERA, I asked about all the different things. And then my doctor, would answer them all, would explain to me why I should do it, why I shouldn't do it, why that wouldn't be the right thing for me. And then I felt so much more comfortable, because I was taking all of these things that I maybe didn't know about. But then ultimately still letting my doctor, explain the reasons to me why. And then, like I said a few times, for instance, about my lining, for example, I just was like, no, we're gonna make it thicker.
Yeah.
Another thing I asked about too was to make sure we checked my thyroid, because I do have Hashimoto's disease and it does fluctuate. And we did check it, everything was fine. I did run it through my endocrinologist, because I do have an endocrinologist that I see separate. So I wanted to make sure I had different eyes looking at all my test results. That was a huge thing for me this last time around. And also I checked my vitamin D level, and it was actually really, really low. And I think people forget, most clinics check it, but I don't know if they routinely check it. So for me, it was like, we hadn't checked it in a while. Again, I don't think there's one thing that makes the embryo stick, but for me, It was like, why not just check mark all of the boxes to make sure that, you don't want to end up with a failed transfer and then say, oh, I should have done this.
Right.
And that was what I was kind of trying to go for.
It's so important to have just that feeling in your gut, like you're being treated like a human, and there's time for you for all your questions, even if they're a very long list coming from your many followers. I think I'm so happy you ended up with that experience in the end.
Thank you.
And just speaking of that, I'd just love to know more about what it was like to really open up and start your My Beautiful Blunder blog and Instagram. I think you said it, like, you didn't just crack open the door, you broke both doors wide open. I see it as really brave, but also just really generous to spend all the time and work to do that. And so, like, what was it like to do that, and as well as receive all the support in return?
So I even think I posted about that today. So that's cool, full circle. But
I think that's the post I saw your cute orange shirt in.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So I was, like I mentioned, always just kind of weirded out by talking about it. I felt weird with my friends, because I didn't know a single person in my, social circle, not that I have a big one, but that had ever gone through any of this, other than like what you hear of either, the media and people doing it because they want a kid, even though that's obviously now we know not true. But, and I thought it was people over 40 that, if they wanted to have a baby. So I felt really awkward having to go through that, talking to anybody. But after a while, like I just started to feel really down all the time. I didn't feel like I had anybody to talk to. And I started to get angry because people obviously weren't asking me how I was doing because they didn't know. But you start to like get this weird thing in your head where you kind of assume people like should know, or even if you say something like pretty casually.
I've done that so many times.
You know what I mean? I'm like, wait, they actually don't even know. But I also I didn't feel comfortable, and I also didn't think they wanted to, they didn't really, like, I didn't think they cared enough, and not to put them in a bad light, but I didn't think they wanted me to be on the phone and say, let me tell you about my past 8 years. And I didn't know if I could do that for everybody because it was a lot. So I started writing because I do like to write, and I wrote a blog, and I ended up writing like 10 or 12 blog posts about the past like few years. And then a friend was like, you know, you should probably put it on Instagram or something so that people see it, because you'll help people by posting it. So in my head, I was like, well, this is more for me, but I guess if I help like one person, then that's amazing, right? I mean, I didn't even know I didn't even know there was an Instagram like or any type of virtual community, to be honest. I just had no idea. So
and it's grown so much. So
it has, just in the past, you know, year and a half that I've been in it. And so when I opened up, it was slow at first, and then I started meeting women who were so amazing. I mean, I can name just a huge list, but there's a few that come to mind. And my friend Chelsea, and Millie and Jess and Alex, just so many amazing women that kind of took me by the hand and said, okay, this is what you need to do. Start here.
I think I saw a couple of those names join too.
Oh, good. But they were just so amazing in like kind of holding my hand, because I was like, this is so new to me. Like, I didn't even know you all were here. And I feel it was so awesome. And also slightly overwhelming, but I just kind of started to feel like I finally belonged somewhere. And as I started to feel more comfortable, and as people were opening their arms to me, I also started realizing like how sharing for me personally was so therapeutic. And I, you know, kind of was doing it selfishly at first. I mean, I still do, I think, because I just share kind of how I feel every single day. Like, I literally will be writing my posts the night before, and my husband's like, can we watch like a TV show? I'm like, well, I need to figure out my thoughts first.
I need to talk about my pumping, or
I need to talk about my feelings.
No sleep.
Unless you want to listen to me, like, let me write this. So he's like, okay, right. So that's kind of how it's going. I mean, sometimes it's, I guess I just have a lot to say, and my husband will laugh because he's like, you talk a lot, but that's why maybe this works. But that's kind of how it's going, because I just thought, you know, I can't be the only one feeling this today. I can't be the only one feeling this yesterday. I know there's others who've gone through this. So in sharing, I love that other people have been able to resonate with things that I share, because I always say, I mean, I am so happy that it's resonating with you, but you're validating my feelings. So again, like on a selfish level, I just feel so supportive always. So I still look to it for that reason. And then on the other side, like, yeah, it's seeing how many people are just not comfortable sharing yet. It's just, you know, like I can't say it breaks my heart, because that's just where they're at, you know, and like some people just can't share and don't want to share.
Okay.
And that's totally fine. And so if I can be a voice for them, or, you know, if they can DM me and talk to me about whatever, I feel so honored to be able to be, you know, that soundboard for them, or whatever they need at the time. Because I know how much it helped me just to have somebody hold my hand, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's sort of a perfect lead-in so everyone's aware. We shared it this morning, but Erin wrote us kind of an essay about the 2-week wait, and not just the technicalities, but like the feeling of it, the longest wait ever, and kind of what you go through emotionally. And, you know, so thank you for sharing that, but also for others who maybe like don't want to have to talk about it, but want to share with a friend or family member what it feels like for them, or what might be coming up for them. I would say, you know, it's just amazing that you write these things that, can help others kind of, you know, visualize or deal with it, or see that others are going through the same thing. So that's on our blog for everyone. And once you did open up, I'm guessing, like you said, you did receive a lot of unsolicited advice. I think it's so nice of you to say that you took in most of it and brought it to your doctor. But we do also hear all the time that people get really frustrating and almost it comes off as insensitive, maybe unintentionally, just, rest more or gain weight or lose weight or whatever.
Oh, yeah. That's
what's some of
that
that advice you got, and like, how do you deal with that, or how do you respond?
So that kind of stuff is never easy. I got more of that, to be honest, just from like people that weren't necessarily on the Instagram community, because I think that by me opening up so much, I guess unless people don't take time to look at all and then give you advice, that's when the unsolicited, like, kind of toxic advice comes in. But I think all the great advice I got were from like genuine people actually like trying to give me good pieces of advice to take to my doctor. And that's what I did with that. So I find that most of the unsolicited advice does come from like outside of this area, or people that don't know that what all I've been through, and don't quite understand, or maybe haven't taken the time to educate themselves or learn much about the infertility community. So those comments, to be honest, for a while, I just kind of smiled at and like nodded my head and rolled my eyes. But I think as I've gained a little bit more confidence and educated myself too, I've been able to tell them, hey, like, I'm actually going through infertility, or I've been doing IVF for so and so many years, and you can't just relax. It is a medical condition. Or the comments I used to get a lot was, oh, do you have or do twins run in your family? Or what else I would get, like, when are you going to try for a boy? Or, or I'd say I'm doing IVF and people would say, oh, congratulations. And I'm like, well, there's nothing, no, and so, and a lot of it, again, is people don't know what to say. And so now I feel like I can take that opportunity to educate them. But there are times when I just don't want to. Like, I'm tired. It's not my job. And so you're
going through it, and you're a mom, and you're constantly having to educate people when they could, just go look it up. Or
totally. So there are moments when I'm just like, I just still, to this day, will smile at the comments, and I'm just like, is it worth it? But I was like when I was pregnant, I do remember there was a few times when I, was at different little events, and a couple of times someone said to me, oh, wow, like I can't imagine starting diapers all over again. Like, there's no way I would ever do that. And I'm like, I didn't really have the opportunity to plan out how far apart my kids were going to be, because I've been doing IVF. So to me, this is actually like such a blessing. And I'm so excited to start diapers again, because I've been wanting to for 7 years, So when I say that, then they're like, oh, okay, I'm sorry, and I don't need an apology, but it's more of just like, to hopefully help them maybe not make those comments in the future to others who may not be comfortable saying something that I said. It's kind of how I think of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think sometimes people just don't even realize that they're saying something that could hurt you. It doesn't seem insensitive to them at all, in a way, but like,
we've all said it, What? I said we've all said it. Like, I 100% have said things, I'm sure, that are very insensitive, and I think going through this has taught me how to be much more empathetic. Just to any situation. And I cut you off. Well, that's
an amazing lesson to come out of it with, I think. And so how have you kind of taken care of yourself through all of this, just mentally and physically, and what would you suggest?
So I, throughout IVF, I try to keep my same routine in the mornings. I would take my kids to school, and I would still go do my workout. I would modify it depending on what part of the journey I was on. But I really still worked out almost every, 5 days a week, as I had been before. I made sure that, to me, is a huge thing, is to have my time to exercise or move my body. I made sure I had my support system once I knew it was out there. Even before I opened up, I did have a couple of really close friends that I always talked to about, and they were the most amazing, supportive people, and still are. So that was a huge thing for me, to talk about it, at least with one or two people. I also am a huge therapy advocate. So my husband and I have been doing therapy as a couple for years, for other reasons, marital issues, just things that also infertility brings up that, you know, we never talked about together. And I would also go alone. And I still do. I still, well, now it's virtual, but you know, therapy was always a huge thing for me. It was a huge support. I don't think I could have gone through everything we went through as a couple or individually without it. And I did also do acupuncture, and honestly, I haven't gone since Ariella was born, but I really need to, because aside from it helping me physically, it was just such a nice mental support, you know. I always felt like I was doing the doctors and the science, but then I also had the Chinese medicine to support, and I do strongly believe in it. I guess, you know, that's a personal choice, but for me, it was very, very helpful.
I agree. It's helped me a lot in the past, and it is sort of a mental break. It's like a few moments of peace.
Yeah.
On
nice
top
nap.
of the actual, yeah. And I think you're a big yoga person, right?
Oh yes, that too.
Yeah.
I trained to become a teacher within those 3 months that I took a break. So that was awesome for me. I did something for myself, which, you know, as a mom and just in general, you just forget to do things like that for you. So I trained to be a teacher. I started teaching, which I loved. And then I just continued practice. So yeah, I brought in yoga to part of my, you know, I probably do it like 3 times a week as part of my exercise routine. Yeah, so it definitely helped. And for me, teaching was a really big reward. So I do miss that.
Oh, I miss it. I haven't been able to go during COVID, but I went all the time. And it helped me during pregnancy. It helped me even after. And I did like sort of easier classes with like bringing my little one. He was always, I had a little tiny NICU baby, so he was always the smallest. Once I was allowed to start bringing him places, we were like in our little corner. But I just think it helps you ease through, like you can do all different levels based on what you need at the time. I think, like you said, based on where you are in your treatment, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, someone's asking if you know any single moms who are doing or have done IVF in the future. That's something I would like to do. And thank you. You are an inspiration.
Let me think about it, because I can't think about it at the top of my head, but I'm sure that I do. And that's amazing. I think I commend anybody who is a single mom or wants to become a single mom or any of it. It's amazing. So if you want to DM me, I'm gonna mess up the name, but if you want to DM me so that I don't forget, I would love to connect with you and then find you someone to connect with.
Yeah, and on that note, if anyone has any other questions once we wrap up, you can feel free to DM either of us. If we didn't cover everything you wanted to know. So before we wrap up, I know you have to go, so thank you for giving us so much of your time. Any just final words of wisdom, advice, hope for new intended parents just beginning their journey?
Yeah, so I think patience is key. Knowing that it very well could work on the first try, because I have a lot of friends who it happened for them on the first try. It's amazing. And it might take a few rounds. I think the biggest thing for me was that when you go through this, you have to think of it as like everything you do is leading towards that end goal. Again, the end goal, you might not end up with a baby. And I hate saying that, but that is a possibility, So I think just like educating yourself on how things could end up, but also keeping that hope. I tried to follow accounts that, had multiple failed transfers, because that's kind of where I was. And that helped me realize that like there are others like me. And then they ended up having positive pregnancy tests and having a baby. So that kept me kind of going. It kept my hope in the forefront. But I was also, somewhat a realist and realistic about it. But I think knowing that everything is kind of a test, right? So you're going to start your medications. You're going to start this. The doctors, like, they want to see how you're going to react to things. Every single.
I think we just lost your audio there.
Oh no.
You're all set. It just came back. We just lost your audio for a second.
Oh, weird. Yeah, no, I just think that to remember that everybody's journey is different, and know that everything you're doing is all to get you to that place. So sometimes it's so hard when you're like, oh, I have to wait another week, or like, believe me, that was the most devastating thing. But ultimately, just because you're waiting doesn't mean you're not actually, in other words.
Right.
So I think that was huge. Again, another one I just have to keep saying is advocate for yourself. Continue to ask questions. If you have any type of doubt or anything in your gut, just ask. Like, I literally asked about everything. I asked if I could have sex. I asked if I could have an orgasm. Anything, because like, you just don't want that weighing on your, on your shoulders, or thinking about it all night long, because you have so much more to think about and worry about. And finding a community, even if it's just one person that you can talk to, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a friend, it just will really help you along the way. And, you don't have to open up. You don't have to share everything like I do. I share probably too much, but just have an outlet to help you kind of hold your hand along the way. And those are probably my biggest things. And just know that, like, you're doing everything you can. You personally will not be messing anything up, I guess, unless, I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, no question is too weird or embarrassing. Yeah. They've probably heard it before, and it's much better to have the answer. Like, probably you'll realize it's a common question once you actually ask it, right?
Absolutely.
And I mean, I don't think you're sharing too much. I think everything you share is helpful to someone. And it's so great that, Nick is so open to you sharing as well.
He doesn't have an option.
You're open about that journey. But so before we wrap up, what are you excited about? Like, do you have anything personal or professional coming up that you'd like to share? What can we look out for or root for you on?
We have been building a house and are finally getting to move. It's been like a mess, but because of COVID and everything, so we've been like moving around.
In San Diego, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like my favorite place.
Oh, that's so funny, because I would move to New York City tomorrow, literally.
Well, it's just starting to rain and it's dark and dreary here, and San Diego is like the best.
No, it's actually raining today.
Oh.
But yeah,
I've only been once, but I mean,
it is.
Love to get back.
Beautiful. I'm just such a New York person. But anyway, we're so lucky and so blessed to live here. But yes, we're building our house, and it should be done in the next month, or enough to have to move in, because we're ready to go. So I'm stressing about all that packing. But yeah, career-wise, I mean, I'm just continuing to be here. I don't, continuing to share. I should, because people ask me like, what else are you gonna, and I don't plan too much in advance, because I just go with how I'm feeling, kind of thing. But I'm just continuing to connect with people, continuing to spread awareness, just finding so many different avenues and things that can be done. And there's a lot, and sometimes it's overwhelming, but it's all good. It's all good things. Yeah.
Hi, Lisa. We're getting a question. Where in SD?
Oh,
if you're
well, I'm in Encinitas. I won't share my address, but I'm in Encinitas.
Yeah, you don't have to share the address.
San Diego is huge, so I get it. But
I'm sure we'll see some of the it's just so much infrastructure and work to pack up a family.
Well, we've moved like twice within the past year and a half, because our rent, like, we thought the house would be done, and so our lease was up, and
yeah. Oh my gosh. Good luck. We moved during COVID too, and
it's hard.
I mean,
the only thing I like is I don't keep anything. I like to throw things away. It's so bad. Like, I'll throw anything away. Unless I can like donate it, but you know what I mean? Like, just little things. Yeah. So especially having twins that are 10, and they like to keep all the little papers, all the little notes, all the little like boxes, so much like trash basically. And so I love moving so that I can throw it all away.
Yeah. And you have to save all your favorite clothes to be hand-me-downs too.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. Well, it's so nice to talk to you this way. I know we often have we have phone conversations
Yeah,
just on the phone, while you're walking with the
I
baby,
know.
which is one of the
Yes.
best times I can talk too, walking, but
Yeah, it's a guarantee.
yeah, it definitely helps to be walking with them. But thank you so much for
Of
doing this
course.
again. It was so
Yes.
informative.
Good.
Like I said, if anyone has more questions you might not have thought of or anything, feel free to DM either of us.
Yeah.
If anyone has other topics you'd like us to cover in our live series, always let me know in our comments or DMs. And thank you again,
Thank you
Erin.
for all you
Everyone,
guys do too. Really.
you're welcome. We love what
Awesome.
we do, and it's also so amazing to meet people like you through it. So I think that's
Likewise.
one of the best parts, helping
Oh,
intended parents find their providers and hearing the stories and, just helping people keep up hope and really start their journey and keep going with their journey. I think it's the best job. So,
absolutely.
um,
Yes.
well, thank
Awesome.
you again.
Thank
Everyone, have a
you.
good rest of your day. Hope to
Yes,
talk to you
you
soon, Erin.
too. Bye.
Bye.